Let's say you have a pool of 50 million in subprime loans. How much money could be out there betting on it in your synthetic CEOs and swaps right now, tonight?
So 50 million, $1 billion.
What?
Hello, handsome. Might I procure your services?
What do I have to do?
Oh, nothing sordid, I assure you. Simply vomit on me ever so gently while I humiliate a pheasant.
Hey guys, Ralph here from the. Wait, I didn't start recording it, did I? Yes, I
Yes, you did. You did. It's
Okay.
being recorded.
Yeah. Hey guys, Ralph here from the Endgame Investor, and it's this month's edition of the Bitter Endgame Draft. I got Phil Lowe on the line. We're going to talk about OTC derivatives. We're going to talk about why it makes sense to approach the endgame positively, why we should not expect the human race to be annihilated. That's not going to happen. And I don't even think there's going to be a great die-off beyond what's already happening with fertility rates because people aren't reproducing. So I think the great die-off is already happening in terms of humans not reproducing and not meeting not subsistence level, replacement level. That might be, a good thing for the planet. I'm not supporting it, but I don't think the end game is going to lead to a mass extinction event, other than maybe huge technological companies like Apple and Microsoft and other conglomerates that have taken over the planet. So I think we're headed for a better world after this, not a worse world. And Phil has his own take on these things. And then we're going to go into a bonus topic of which I don't even know what we're going to talk about. But first, Phil, I just wanted to ask you, how do you feel now that silver looks to be on a serious breakout? Is your life any different? Do you have feelings of euphoria or that you're floating or past life experiences, anything like that, acid flashbacks, whatever?
The occasional acid flashback.
Nervous excitement. I'm definitely feeling like, okay, we need to make sure we have all the ducks in a row. But I mean, I've had 3 years to get my ducks in a row. But it's sort of like, well, how much more do we want to accumulate any more silver? Where do we want to vault it? All this kind of stuff. But there's nothing that's like, I mean, I've been chatting with you for 3 years now, so it's not like this is a surprise. But nervously excited and optimistic. Also, the good news about the spikes is that it will encourage more normies to participate because they're going to say, well, I bought Bitcoin when it was 100,000 and now it's 105,000, but I could have bought silver at 32 and now it's 38. So, simple math, silver's the more exciting prospect. As that happens more and more, that will be good for everybody.
Yeah, the most annoying thing about Bitcoin is that all the Bitcoiners really have to say to us is, we just bought Bitcoin and now, we're rich. Like, what are you people talking about? And right now they're correct, and there's nothing I can really do about it.
Yeah.
And I don't really want to laugh at them and point and like go, ha, like that line from what is it, like in Dumb and Dumber, where they're laughing at the guy after he eats the hot sauce and he has an ulcer and he's on the floor. That's what I was thinking. I'll put that in. That's going to be us when they're on the floor, and I don't want to be pointing and laughing. But I also, it is like you were in Bitcoin, dude. Like, what do you want from me?
I fell into a Bitcoin rabbit hole on Twitter arguing with the guy and just, it was the standard, like Bitcoin's absorbing all value. The future is Bitcoin. Gold was money, but now Bitcoin is money. And it's, I just left him with the point. I said, anyone who's following down this, because he's pumping it up. He's telling everybody to get into Bitcoin. I said, anyone who's following you down this is going to end up cursing your name. So I would be very careful, like who you encourage to do this stuff with you.
Well, yeah, cursing your name would be in an event where they still have food to eat, but if they don't, then it'll be worse than cursing your name. It could
Yeah,
be to,
eating you.
attacks.
Yeah.
But so I just had this thought on Bitcoin, then we'll start with the topics. Like $119,000 now. Okay, so we know that every crevice of the global economy is stuffed with debt upon debt upon debt, several layers of it. So the question is, how much debt is involved in the price of Bitcoin at $120,000? Who
It's all
owes?
on margin, so much
Yeah.
margin in the Bitcoin sphere. Like, what's his
Yeah.
strategy? Michael Saylor, you know
Uh-huh.
him, of
Yeah.
him. I mean, he's borrowing. All of them, and there's several companies doing it now. They're borrowing, to go buy Bitcoin, which is of course pumping up Bitcoin. But the second that margin they get margin called, it's going to topple over.
Yeah. So I don't know what Bitcoin is going to do. I did call the top in gold terms in 2021. So far that has held. I could be wrong about that, and who knows, but the basic point is that once debts are called in because there's a dollar crunch, that's going to be the Bitcoin is not going to survive that. Even gold will get hurt temporarily, but Bitcoin
Yeah.
will get slaughtered by it.
Yes.
Gold will go down maybe 20, maybe even 30% very briefly, but then once the printing starts after that, then you're going to have gold just going crazy and Bitcoin maybe recovering very slightly.
Yeah.
That's what I see happening. So we'll see if I'm right. I really think I am. I don't think the nature of economics has suddenly changed because of the advent of some shared Excel spreadsheet that people are like, "Oh my God, this is going to change." It's not. Okay, anyway, you wanted to talk about OTC derivatives. What do you mean? What do you want to talk about?
Oh, sure. So this, I just did a video on it two videos ago. Was the sort of the towering, because we always talk about Extra's pyramid, and you and me are always talking about the bottom two or three levels. We have gold, and then you have the paper money or the paper credit derivatives, and then you have the bonds, and we're always talking about that. And I said, well, what about the very tippy top? The very height of the pyramid. What's going on up there? Why don't we talk about it? What does it look like? And so I started investigating what OTC derivatives. There's two in the original Extra's original pyramid. There's unsecured government liabilities, which is like Social Security, and then the other one, which is much 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 larger, are the OTC derivatives. And you can see why the unfunded government liabilities are up at the tippy top, because they're promising things they have no intention of ever delivering. It's not even funded. There's no plan to fund it. It's just pay as you go. As each Congress comes in, they fund the next stage, the next rung of the Ponzi ladder, just enough to keep the Ponzi going without ever having a plan to actually, pay off Social Security in any real way, shape, or form. And this is all going to be done with inflated money anyway, so you can see where that goes. But OCT derivatives are a private function, and what is going on? And when I investigated, I realized it was basically just sports betting for huge financial institutions. So the first off, it's un there's no
What's an
clear.
example of an OTC derivative?
Sure, yes, exactly right. There's no clearinghouse for this, so it doesn't go through any sort of central clearinghouse, so nobody really knows how big they are. But we do know the estimates range between 750 trillion and 1 quadrillion dollars, and maybe even a little bit higher, depending on who wants to take a crack at calculating it.
Wait, what does that mean? What does that mean? What are these quadrillion dollars? Does that mean the note?
Sure.
What does it mean?
So here's how it works. Let me explain that, then I'll explain how it works.
Okay.
So JP Morgan will call Bank of America and they'll say, I don't think Phil can pay his mortgage. And Bank of America says, no, he can definitely pay his mortgage. And JP Morgan, no, he's not going to make it. Bank of America, oh, yep, absolutely will make it. So JP Morgan says, well, I'll tell you what, $30 million says Phil's not going to pay his mortgage. And Bank of America says, you are on, sir. Now, JP Morgan does not own my mortgage, and neither does Bank of America. They're just looking at me, and they're making a sports bet on whether I'm going to pay my mortgage or not. And you'll notice my mortgage is not $30 million. My mortgage is, $300,000. So they've turned a $300,000 market, problem, or, something that would affect the market to an extent of $300,000, and they turned it into a $30,300,000 event if I do or do not pay my mortgage.
Okay.
Now, what makes this even crazier, neither one of them has the money. This is all done on margin. So they say, hey,
Wait,
JP Morgan.
somebody has the theoretical money to lend if one of them loses the bet, which one of them will. Where does that money come from?
No, it's ginned up. They're banks.
Okay.
It's being ginned up out of thin air. So they just borrow from each other, and they state the loan as the asset on their balance sheet. That's the real
Okay.
point. That's actually more important than the bet itself. Is the
Okay.
actual generation of the credit, because when you see something, and then they'll do the same. So my neighbor, we can use you. they'll make the exact opposite bet on my neighbor's house.
Yeah, that one's called CDO squared. CDO of a CDO. All right? And then there's CDOs made up of the opposite side of the bet you made with your swaps. We call them synthetic CDOs.
What did you synthetic CDOs?
Synthetic CDOs.
That is fucking crazy.
It's not. It's awesome.
Like my neighbor lives a very similar life to me, similar chance of default, similar life structure, right? But they'll take the exact opposite position on that one.
Just to hedge
So
their
then
own
it's like-
bet.
Yeah, they'll hedge. Yeah, they'll flip the bet. So like Bank of America will be on the negative side, and J.P. Morgan will be on the positive side, and they'll take this giant bet again. And so it's like, why are they doing this? And the answer that I'm coming up with is that they're trying to generate credit to put as assets on their balance sheet. So when you see something like State Street Financial says $27 trillion under management, most of it is this bullshit. These bullshit sports bets
Okay.
that they're just ginning up out of thin air, and they're writing as the asset. Now they of course want to. It's better to win the bet than lose the bet. That's absolutely true. But more important than that still is the creation of the credit.
Okay, wait,
And
hold
so-
on. Do I understand this correctly? So let's say JP Morgan and Bank of America are betting. JP Morgan bets that you'll pay your mortgage, Bank of America pays that you won't, and then they flip it, and your neighbor, Bank of America, bets that your neighbor will, and then JP Morgan bets that your neighbor won't. So they have equal. Let's say each bet is worth $30 million. So that's $60 million under management for both banks.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so then hold on, just lead me through this. What happens when you default and your neighbor does not default?
Whoever makes the
Or
loan.
let's say
Sorry.
let's say both you and your neighbor default on your
Default.
mortgage.
Yeah.
What happens then?
What happens then is that theoretically they would call, like the winner would call the loser and say, you owe me $30 million.
Okay.
What in reality happens is they just double down on more bets. So because JP Morgan knows that there's not $1 quadrillion in the system. So if they start calling in all these bets, the system's going to crash. So let's say Bank of America lost both those bets. They'll just call and say, hey, you know what? I think Phil's not going to pay his car payments. I'll bet you $50 billion on the car payment. Right? They just make
Double
new
or
bets.
nothing. Double or nothing.
Double, yeah, exactly. They're constantly double or nothing. This is the analogy I use. So the analogy I used in my video was if you imagine a casino, right? And imagine this casino was extending infinite credit to the gamblers in the casino. So then you have a working class guy come in and let's say he gets in the hole a little bit. He goes, can I borrow some more and get out of the hole? Absolutely, sir. Okay, so now he really, like, let's say he loses $100,000, $200,000. He's not going to pay that off. So he goes back and he says, can I borrow $200,000 to try and double nothing? Absolutely, sir. Right? He's never going to leave the table. He will never leave because as he keeps losing, right, he's just going to get more and more of the hole. He's just going to keep doubling down. The winners will likewise never leave because let's say I've won $200,000. I could win $400,000. So I'll just keep playing, right? And then $500,000, $600,000, $1 million. I've won $1 million. Well, but I'm on a streak. I might as well play for 2 million, right? And then suddenly, our situation's reversed. Now I'm in the hole and he's up ahead. Well, we'll just keep going, right? These
Right.
degenerate gamblers, they're degenerate gamblers. They'll never leave. Not to mention the casino is generating the winning chips off of the losers coming back for more loans. There's no actual cash. There's no ability to cash out. So the casino is sort of in a bind. In fact, they're very much in a bind.
Okay, so wait, hold on. The loser says, I'm down 200,000. Give me $200,000 in chips. They print up or they create $200,000
Right, they credit the account.
in chips.
Yes.
And then there's more chips. Okay, so this actually gives me a new perspective on what the end game is from this angle. It's one I haven't thought of. I've thought of different derivatives of it, but maybe this is better. If the banks are betting each other and expanding their chip supply by taking the opposite sides of bets with each other, and then they inflate their assets under management or whatever it is they're doing, then the end game is when all the gamblers notice that they don't have anything to consume, and then they take all their chips and all try to cash out at the same time and buy whatever they can because they realize that the chips aren't worth anything anymore.
Well, I think the crash will happen further down. So in the casino analogy, the cocktail waitress and the card shuffler guy and the guy who sweeps the floors, they're demanding to be paid in dollars, and the casino is not actually generating dollars, it's just generating chips. So all of them are going to walk out. They're just going to quit one day and say, well, you're not paying me, so I'm not going to work for you. And then someone's going to cut the power to the casino, and then the people that were gambling are just going to awkwardly look around in the dark at each other and then just stand up and shuffle out. Because I don't. So for the crash to happen at the top, in the OTC derivatives market, J.P. Morgan or somebody like that is going to have to call in their chips, and they know that will destroy the system, so they're not going to do it because they just like having those assets under management. That's purely what OTC derivatives are there for, is to have assets under management, so they can say we're a very big important bank, we have all this credit generated, and all these people have money, so we can use this to generate even more credit further down the line.
So
But it has.
really,
I don't think the crash is going to be up there.
so so really, what you're saying is that, or that could be one component of the crash. It obviously will be.
Yes.
And then it'll affect the rest of the pyramid, but exactly which layers of the pyramid go first and what order, nobody knows. Um, but when they inflate the assets under management, what benefit do they have besides marketing? Do they collect more fees because of AUM? And the other comment I was going to make is that really there is no banking system. There's one bank, and the one bank
Yes.
directs how every other bank places pretend bets with the other little banks that they're all connected to. And so it's just one giant pyramid builder trying to level this side and balance this side and keep everything steady and just making it bigger and bigger and bigger. And then when it falls, everybody goes away. And there is no winner except for the actual banks. The actual banks are the people that have money, and those are, again, the stackers and whoever has gold and silver.
Yeah, the benefit is the same reason they give out ninja loans in like 2007. It's the exact same thing. They're just trying to they need to get loans on their books. And so they're just making stupid sports bets with each other to achieve that function.
Wait, what are ninja loans?
No income, no job.
Oh,
You never
okay.
heard of a ninja loan?
No, I
Yeah, they
haven't.
were they were like low. You could get a house loan with no income, no job in like 2007.
Well, I knew about that. I just didn't know it was called ninja loans. But yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so it's the same thing. I mean, they just need to get assets on their books. So that's really the long and the short of it, is just what OTCs are. And I mean, people are like, well, we should regulate them. I mean, the regulation is not the problem. The problem is that the money's fake. So I don't even think OTC derivatives are going to exist on a gold standard, or at least not the way they exist now.
So it's like poly market for banks.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. They bet on there's nothing they can't bet on. They'll bet on interest rates going up. They'll bet on interest rates going down. They'll bet on weather events. They'll bet on whatever. It's under the guise of hedging. But the trouble is there's no limit on the underlying asset that affects their bet. So like I said, my house is, I have a $300,000 mortgage. They could have a $400 million bet on my house. And I wouldn't know, because it's just it's a bet between two independent parties on these events happening.
Right. There's a scene like this in The Big Short. Right. When
Yeah.
when they're at when they're I think they're at Benihana's or whatever it is, some kind of they're cooking dinner on the table and chopping up the seafood, and then he's like, and then the Steve Carell character, what was his name in the movie? I don't remember, but he's like, how much bets are being placed in this aspect of the real estate market right now tonight? And the Asian guy is like, well, it could be whatever $1 billion, and like he freaks out because he finally understands what the hell's going on. So that's exactly what's going on, except now it's not real estate, it's everything.
Let's say you have a pool of 50 million in subprime loans. How much money could be out there betting on it in your synthetic CEOs and swaps right now, tonight?
Let's see, 50 million, $1 billion.
What?
Yeah. And it's shadow. It's it's shadowy because there's no clearinghouse. So like we have no idea because there's not it's just independent bank stuff. We can only guesstimate. And I asked Grok what the estimate range was, and it said 730 trillion to 1 quadrillion. So
Actually,
something.
I just had an interesting conversation with an old friend of mine who was never an anti-stacker. He always understood that he doesn't understand gold is money or anything like that, but he understands that gold is probably safer than any other asset when civilizations collapse. He gets that. He's like a Roman historian kind of guy. So he told me the
Yeah.
story of a friend of his who's like an endodontist and he owns all these clinics in California and he got so rich that was able to stockpile about 1% of the market cap of Nvidia. So and at that point he's like, this is very recently, he just suddenly had this realization. He's like, I'm way too overexposed here and I should really get out. And then he just ended up buying a bunch of gold with a lot of his profits, because he doesn't see how anything could get any more expensive than it already is. And
But he had 1% of Nvidia.
yeah,
That's an enormous amount of wealth.
yes, what is it like, $10 billion,
Yeah, yeah,
something like that.
he must be, yeah, $100 million, something like that. That's an enormous amount. Well, good for him, and good for him for plowing into gold at the right time. There you go.
Yeah, so it could be that the ultra rich are starting to get so dizzy on their own dollar denominated wealth that they don't really know what to do. And they're like, well, I should probably just get out, but I don't want dollars because I know this is, if I had $100 billion, I mean, how rich is Elon Musk? Like 50, 60 billion, whatever he has. If I had that much money and everything was super expensive, and I knew the dollar was going to fall, and I didn't necessarily know that gold and silver were money, I'd probably just buy a whole bunch of real stuff. And then whatever I didn't know and whatever I didn't want to maintain, I just hold gold because I know it could just sit there. And I don't know what it's going to be worth, 10 years from now, but I know it'll probably be fine. So that's what I would do.
Yeah, and as more and more people do that, we should see the market reacting to that movement.
Yeah, like we hear of real estate crashes, we hear of savings and loan crashes, commodities crashes, oil crashes. Has there ever been a gold crash? I mean,
I
no,
don't think it's possible. Yeah, I don't think it's possible. The only
no,
way there'd be a gold crash would be if you dug up a lot of gold in a short period of time in a certain area, and then you have a very inflationary period, like
no.
the California gold.
If a gold asteroid were to hit,
Yeah, yeah. But even then, it would just be temporary until the gold spread out, and it would be
yeah,
mostly It would be mostly relegated to the area where the asteroid hit and the immediate surroundings.
yeah,
Like in 1847 or 1849 in California, like in San Francisco, like a breakfast at a hotel cost like a nugget of gold or something. It would buy you like a team of horses back in New York, you know? But there
mhm,
was just so much gold in that one area that couldn't get out that it
mhm.
was just like, like I said, a breakfast in a hotel was like a nugget of gold. Some degenerate amount.
Okay, so this has happened before, just in different circumstances, but it's the same concept.
Yeah, and localized. Yeah. Well, a user was just asking me. I just got a viewer question. He said, if there's a mass die off, won't prices go up because there's the same amount of gold and there's less people to use it? I said, yes. Ceteris paribus. If there's, I don't think there's gonna be a mass die off. People, don't worry. If there is a mass die off and there's like way less people on Earth and there's the same amount of gold that was sitting around, their prices will go up in gold terms. However, people will also they'll find non-monetary uses for gold. For example, in the old days, people would paint their religious buildings, they'd paint the roofs in gold, or they'd build a big religious, icon in gold, the golden calf, for example.
Right.
They stopped doing that because it got really expensive. And also, like everyday women will just wear gold tiaras. It'll just be like a thing you do. I'm going to put on a gold tiara and walk around with it. Just because if there is that much gold lying around, people will just find decorative things to do with it.
Right.
But it wouldn't be the end of the world.
Um, so as we
Or maybe it would
transition,
because everyone died off.
Yeah, well, okay, so as we transition, I had this idea. As we transition to the second topic of a positive end game outlook, which we have discussed before. So let me put it this way. Let me turn the tables, so to speak. I think if we're in a world where the end game does not happen for another 10, 20, 30 years, I think that would lead to a mass die-off. So it's the end game that's going to stop the mass die-off. And how so? I mean, we talked for a minute about the fertility rate. Entire countries just non-breeding themselves out of existence, like North Korea and Japan. It's getting worse. And I was listening. My father watches Fox News a lot. And it annoys me, but I hear snippets of things that are, a little bit interesting. So, what's that show with that obnoxious guy who's like a comedian, late night, and he has the other comedian. It's like this right-wing sort of stand-up comedy show or talk show, whatever it was. He was talking about how young people don't have house parties anymore. They don't just, go to somebody's house for a party in high school and drink some beers, have a few drinks, and like, get drunk a little bit and just have a good time. And there's problems with those things too. I'm not saying they're completely great, but just to have kids hang out, teenagers hang out is very important.
Yeah, it's
And they're
social.
not
Yeah.
and they're not doing it anymore.
What are they
Um,
doing?
Staying on their screens, talking to each other on WhatsApp or whatever, just staying
Gotcha.
in social media without doing anything real in the world. Not meeting each other as much. There's a lot of more incels, which are involuntary celibates, which teenagers can get violent like that. Um, and now that we have AI, which we haven't even seen the full effects of, we have teenagers, even children, forming relationships with these artificial intelligence bots, and they're getting their emotional fulfillment from that. So there's going to be the fertility rate is going to drop like a stone, even from where it is now.
Yeah. If we don't get
So
this under control,
there's
yeah.
there's go technology is going to unbreed us out of existence if it doesn't stop.
It'll just
And
be like,
so,
what's this hedonism bot from Futurama?
right, exactly. Hedonism bot from Futurama.
Hello, handsome. Might I procure your services?
What do I have to do?
Oh, nothing sordid, I assure you. Simply vomit on me ever so gently while I humiliate a pheasant.
Underneath the structure of all this technology are huge capital centers that cannot be supported without huge amounts of debt. So the end game, I hope, is going to end this technological destruction that we are leading ourselves into and lead to, yes, a temporary fall in human standards of living, but we'll be able to rebuild ourselves on much sounder footing.
I want to make a much more positive case for the end game or post end game. The way I described it in my video was it's kind of like an event horizon. We can see the end game approaching. It's just the way we can see the outside of the black hole, right? We can see the matter spinning around it, but we can't see inside the actual crash, and we can't see the other side. We can only hypothesize based on experience and based and using logic as well. So many people in this space are sort of doom pilling. They're saying, the because today is worse than yesterday, tomorrow will be worse than today. So the powers that be are going to use the crash to institute totalitarianism. They're all going to put us on a UBI, and it's going to be the CBDC UBI and all the worst things you can possibly imagine. I think you're with me in that this will be a very cathartic event the parasite will have to drop off the host.
Fry, where's your brain slug?
Poor little guy starved to death.
Because the parasite is the Federal Reserve and is the money printing system. So if the parasite drops off the host, then we will be free of it, and then we can rebuild in a much better way. And what does this look like is, as you said, the system is, and as we talked about with the OTC derivatives, the system demands the debt grow at an exponential rate. That's just a function of the Ponzi scheme, is that the debt must grow at an exponential rate. It doesn't really care how the debt is generated or what the debt is spent on, so long as that the debt is generated. And one side effect of this is that corporations have reached ungodly sizes, just enormous proportions, far, far, far larger than they would naturally be on an honest monetary system. And the way credit works, and for the viewer, I know you know Rafi, but for the viewer, the way a credit chain works is if I go to Rafi and say, "Hey Rafi, let's say Rafi runs a bar, and I go to Rafi, and I'm a farmer, and I say, "Hey Rafi, my crops are going to come in next month, and I can pay you then. Let me have a beer now, and I'll run up a tab. Let me run up a tab at your bar now, and when my crops come in, I'll pay you silver at that time. I'll pay you actual money. I'll sell my crops, I'll get silver, I'll come pay you." And then so Rafi agrees to take my credit, and then Rafi goes to a blacksmith for a hammer. He says, "Hey, blacksmith, I need a hammer to repair my bar. I can pay you in a month when Phil's crops come in, and he's going to pay me silver, and then I'll come pay you silver." And the blacksmith says, "Sure, I trust you. I trust Phil. We all in this village together. I know you. He's my cousin-in-law or something like that. No problem. I'll make the hammer for you now," and he gives it to you, right? This credit depends upon me actually getting this crops in, getting the silver and giving it to you, right? So that you could pay off further down the line. If I fail to deliver, that credit chain collapses. Or if you fail to deliver, right? Now, in the Middle Ages, that the credit didn't really extend much further than that. That was most of a credit chain. But in the modern world, particularly when banks were developed, the credit chains got formalized and got much bigger. Now that's totally fine as long as everyone's being honest. The problem is the Federal Reserve, the point of that credit chain is that money actually has to move at some point. Money, I have to get my hands on some money and give you money, and then you give the guy further down money. That's how the credit chain gets closed out, completes its credit life cycle. The Federal Reserve is trying to avoid the money payout simply by stretching the credit to infinity. It just says if we can stretch the credit long and far enough, we'll never actually have to pay out the money. And because the credit is getting stretched out so far, the enormous amounts of credit are being generated. So Walmart, I used Walmart as an example in my video. Walmart buys tomatoes by the 100 million, right? They don't deal in small numbers. They call up Monsanto. They say we need 100 million tomatoes in 6 months, and they pay for that with credit, right? They're maybe they pay for it now, maybe they pay on delivery, some sort of deal where they're going to pay for it, right?
Even if they pay cash, cash is credit.
Cash is credit as well, right? Exactly. And it would be the economy of scale is purely a derivative of the giant amount of credit. If they had to pay in gold and silver, it would be unfeasible to operate on a scale that large. They wouldn't be able to do it. They can't show up with several armored cars worth of gold bullion. I mean, I guess technically they could, but the efficiency's gone, right? The efficiency of scale comes from being able to order 100 million tomatoes and go boop and transfer the credit over, right? I'm going to pay you, boop, there it goes, right? That's where the efficiency is generated.
Well,
If they have to
theoretically,
show
you could have Walmart pushing a button and transferring title to gold through a stable coin or whatever to the farmer, 100 million tomatoes in gold. I mean, what about that?
with an honest credit derivative?
Yeah.
Possibly. I don't think the credit chains will extend that far in an honest gold standard. Let me get into. I'll get into that in a second. So Walmart can't generate that amount of credit if they have to actually deliver money. Even on an honest credit derivative, I don't think the scale. I think the scale is far too large. But now the viewer is sitting there. Well, but I want tomatoes. I like tomatoes. How am I gonna have tomatoes if Walmart can't generate them? You'll have a local grower who will grow tomatoes, and if the credit chain is really small, it'll be a local farmer, and you'll go to that local farmer or a market, right? And you'll buy a tomato directly from him, either with honest credit or with gold and silver itself. Silver itself.
And you know that the positive impact of that would be that each local farmer would grow different types of tomatoes with different methods, and they taste different, and you could pick the one that you like instead of relying on Walmart for the same 100 million tomatoes that don't differ.
The monoculture, yeah. And you know what else Walmart does? They pick because they have to generate. They come 100 million tomatoes. They pick them when they're green and put them on the trucks. That's why they taste so disgusting. If like a tomato falls off the back of the truck and it'll just like bounce down the road. It won't even splat, because they're so unripe when they pick them. So yeah, you'll have a local grower. It'll be a riper tomato, a much more delicious tomato, and there'll be 10 different varieties you can choose from. You don't have to rely on Walmart's $100 million tomato chain,
But
right?
why can't the credit get that big under a gold standard? What stops it?
The money movements. The money moves fast. At some point, somebody's like, well, the money has to move. And even in a bank,
Or
right?
the
So let's say
title to the money has to move.
yeah,
The
yeah, the
money that,
title,
yeah.
even within a bank, right? Even within a bank, like if I owe you money and we both have the same bank, or we have banks that talk to each other, they take the sticky note with my on my pile of gold, and they just move the sticky, they move some of the gold to the pile of gold with your name on the sticky note, right? So it's all done within the bank,
Uh-huh.
but that the money still moved, right? And that once the money moves, the credit life cycle, the credit chain gets smaller again. As
Right.
long as the money's moving to the appropriate place it's supposed to move to pay off the credit is not growing to astronomical proportions and not getting completely out of hand. Now, so then the question is, well, what if we can't grow to economies of scale of that size, like a Walmart or a Home Depot, then can we not generate the stuff we need? Absolutely. That's not the case at all. We had car companies in the 1890s. In fact, before when we were on a gold standard, I was just talking to a viewer. I thought we had 20, 30, 40. He said we had about almost 100 car companies in the United States during the early stages of the leaving the gold standard. Let me put it that way. So there was like, right now we have Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler. Back then there was, Cadillac was its own company, Studebaker, Packard, Dort apparently was the name of a company,
I've got a
Republic.
Studebaker parked in the front right here.
You have a
Actually.
Studebaker? Okay, there
Oh,
you go.
I don't.
Yeah. Anyway, there's all a million different cars. And all these car companies were competing with each other. So there was all this innovation, all this variety, and a lot of the innovation derived through competition far exceeded the benefits we are getting from these giant economies of scale that are just mass producing crap cars, right? So I really look forward to the innovation we're going to see on the other side of the end game when these giant car companies all break down and Walmart breaks down and Home Depot breaks down. Not to mention Monsanto's going to collapse. BlackRock's going to collapse. Big Pharma is going to collapse. These are all functions. These giant companies are all functions of the infinite credit stretch.
Big Pharma.
They're all going to
Big
go away.
Pharma collapsing is going to be glorious.
They're all they're going to go, and I think you'll agree with me. I think they'll be gone within weeks of the end game hitting.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't see how they would survive. I mean, there might be something. It'll be like Blockbuster, right? There's one Blockbuster video, like I think in Alaska. There might be like one farm called Monsanto Family Farms. Like there might be, Ford might be a brand name, but it'll be one of 100 car companies instead of, the only one of two car companies that they each own half of each other's stock anyway. So there's really only Megacorp. So I look forward to it. I think we're going to see a lot of great competition, a lot of innovation, and the money's going to actually move. People are going to be paid in honest wages again. So we're going to see great prosperity again. I don't predict it. Look, when the USSR collapsed, we should have seen if financial collapses caused die-offs, we should have seen a die-off at the end of the Soviet Union. I mean, they had everything. They went through the Russian Revolution. They went through Lenin. They went through Stalin. They went through Brezhnev, Khrushchev, Andropov, Chernenko. That whole period of no property rights whatsoever. So we should have seen on the other side of that a mass slaughter, and we did not. We saw a lot of chaos. I mean, a lot of chaos. But the people that got screwed were the pensioners, depending on the system. The young entrepreneurs, they became, things like oligarchs, and they were doing great. A young entrepreneur who was not afraid to get into the system, could do pretty well. Now, Russia has a lot of other problems of graft and other kinds of things where it's not an honest system, so that is hampering it quite a bit. But we did not see a mass die-off. So I don't think that's a function of a system collapse. What I think will happen with the farms, America's for whatever reason, this is very weird. Everything else American, the system is demanding America export to China, but for whatever reason, we make ungodly amounts of food here. So I I don't see a die off on the other side. I see a quick sell off and I see a land rush. I think Monsanto and these giant agribusinesses, they're going to sell their land for whatever they can get for them in real terms. And so if you've got some silver in your pocket and you want to start a family farm in Wyoming or wherever their farm is, you could probably buy land. You could probably buy land cheaper than you've seen since the 1890s.
So you're
You know,
saying
like
Bill
during
Gates' land bets are going to fail?
in gold and silver terms, yes, everything will.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Poor bastard.
Yeah. I mean, the land bets will do better than like, the Nvidia bets,
Yeah.
but or Bitcoin bets. But yeah, they're going to fail in gold and silver terms because the land large farms will not be able to run. It's the same problem that Walmart has. The economy of scale isn't there on a gold standard. You need to have many much smaller farms, not one giant agribusiness.
Yes. Um, so I'm gonna just close this out with just observations I'm making as someone who came from America but hasn't been here in a while, and the last 2 years, noticing changes or intensifications. First of all, just watching TV. I haven't watched TV in years, just commercials and stuff. I was aware of this intellectually, but the fact that drug commercials are constant and everywhere, it, it it strikes me as completely ludicrous that these commercials you can't even buy, like they end with ask your doctor about Flablargina or whatever it is.
Yeah. And
And
side effects includes death. It's
yeah, yeah, but the
yeah.
side effects, but the fact is you can't even buy these products. Well,
Yeah.
like the commercial telling you ask your doctor about, as if your doctor doesn't know them. Without the commercial, your doctor wouldn't suggest it. Like what? It does nothing to do with you. It's this is it's obviously just filler for the company to buy the content of the news channels or whatever channels that are on there. You're just buying the channel. That's what they're doing. Like I
You know
never
what?
noticed this, but that's what's happening. The other thing that's happening is that the litigiousness of society is getting so obvious because all the money is in litigation, and the problem with these insurance companies, because insurance is so inflated because of the malpractice lawsuits. A problem that I remember starting in the 90s. I remember as a kid these discussions were being had, but there's these billboards everywhere for these huge amounts of money, $500,000, $600,000, with a picture of a lawyer on them. And all the commercials on the radio when I'm in the car are for law firms. Were you injured in a car accident? Do you have an insurance claim?
Yeah.
All of it. And then so I just remember I was driving with my son in the car, and it's somewhere along in South Miami, and sometimes I just like see something weird, and I joke to him like, "Do you want one of those things? Like, I'll give it to you for your bar mitzvah or whatever." So I see this like Persian rug factory or something that's creating all these like very expensive Persian rugs. I'm like, you want a Persian rug? I'll give you one for your bar mitzvah. So he's like, he looks around, looks at a billboard. He's like, no, but I want $500,000 because he's all these billboards for like huge amounts of money for the lawsuit. But he didn't even realize it was going to be funny because he didn't. But like, I start cracking up. But yeah, they're everywhere. This whole country, nothing works. And my brother-in-law is he's a ultrasound reader, or ultrasound technician, right? And he sees these girls coming in uh pregnant, and they want to get like a quick abortion, and they declare it as an emergency because if they say that it's an emergency, insurance covers it. So emergency rooms are stuffed with these non-emergency situations of these teenage girls that are looking for quick abortions. And meanwhile, they're on their phone, they're texting, they're like, I don't know. If it's a girl, I'm gonna keep it. But if it's a boy, I don't want it. So like, this kind of like, it's horrifying. And
Yeah.
meanwhile, people who have actual emergencies can't get in because these teenage girls who have to declare it as an emergency, so their abortion gets covered by insurance. This whole system is so sick, it has to end.
So you're not going to talk to your doctor about phlebarganol?
No, I'm not.
Yeah. Yeah, I do totally agree with you. The system is really messed up right now, and
It's it's
I'm hoping.
dangerous. If any of us get sick, we're in trouble because we're heading into a system that could eat you alive. Anyway, what were you gonna say? I don't want to keep interrupting you. Yeah.
I would just say, yeah, the silver climb is an optimistic beacon of light in the increasing insanity, and it will drive people. It'll be like a North Star, and will drive people back to where they're supposed to be. Uh, the pain of the losses, I think, is just temporary. It's just going to be the shock of it, and then people are going to have a good cry, and then they're just going to have to get back up and get back to work. Uh, the one of the results of the breakdown of credit is going to be a giant renewal in entrepreneurship. So, for example, things like pants haven't been made in America in 100 years or 50 years. No, not 100, 50 years. Pants haven't been made in America in 50 years. We're gonna have to dust off those machines, and if they're still here, and start making pants again, because there's nothing, or raise some capital to have some pant making machines shipped back from Indonesia, because we're just gonna have to make it. We're gonna have to make it here. So there's a lot for the entrepreneur, for somebody who wants to like start afresh, start anew, build something new. I think the future is really bright. Uh, for the pensioners, if you don't get into a gold and silver position, so if you're elderly or you're thinking about retirement soon, and you're not in a very strong gold and silver position, I think you're going to have a really hard time.
Yep, that's how it is. We could be very close now. I've been saying that for a long time.
I have to. You know
The
what it is?
TG, yeah.
Once you realize the money's fake, you're like, well, but it can't last that long. I mean, everyone's going to realize the money's fake, but it's been going on for 50 years now.
Yeah.
Actually, so if you want to go all the way back to 1873, it's been going on that long. So,
Yep, it has. We'll see what when the Treasury General account starts to rise. It's still falling. The rise in the debt officially, like, was it $400 billion the debt ceiling was raised. That was all accounting gimmicks that were plugged in there. The government has not raised $400 billion since the debt ceiling. They haven't raised any yet.
oh,
Net.
really? Okay.
Right.
All right. Because you made
I'm
a,
gonna
yeah,
I'm
you were,
gonna talk about that on the Endgame Investor. This is all some kind of weird accounting shtick that I don't understand. But they're going to raise the money. They're going to start doing it. It's coming, and when it does, they're gonna trigger something bad, and they're gonna have to print. And I'm hoping that'll be the last time. But whatever it is coming. So hopefully people will start reproducing afterwards, and the people who can't handle real life, they will exit. There will be a lot of suicides. That will be very unfortunate. I can't really do anything about it. But the people who have talent and a will to live and excitement for accumulating skill and relationships and being alive, they will do just fine.